Yeah. So our third component of our we space is resonating prayer, right? We started with we space. Last time was whole body mystical awakening in the individual form. We put those together, and the third core component is what we call resonating prayer. And this can be new for a lot of people. So I first invite everyone to take kind of the spirit of a playful beginner, if you are a beginner, that this is something that we can explore and experiment with together, and have that beginner's mind. And what the purpose of resonating prayer is really to help us practice and learn to love in a mystical and holistic way, to engage our whole embodied consciousness in that love. So really it's a practice of loving, of seeing one another and being seen in love. And we believe that God is love. So this is participating in our divine nature. And that's what makes it prayer. It's necessarily relational and interactive. So it's not like traditional prayer where we're praying to God out there to do something for someone else over there. We are engaging in the shared consciousness space of God, of the divine in our midst, from within and among us. So our meditation, our whole body mystical awakening, is really designed to help us open up to that awakened consciousness and participation in that enlivenment, in that spirit, and in that knowing that comes forth from that. So what that looks like after the meditation, when we're in that state, we will go around and focus on each person one at a time, and we'll say their name. And there's kind of a 3-step process to that you can engage in. And the first step we call just engaging in the flow. So that is to silently focus on that person and engage in the flow of sending them love and energy and healing and care. It's a heart transmission, and it's a silent practice. And that first step is also a full, complete form of practicing resonating prayer. You're welcome to stay in that silent flow for your form of practicing resonating prayer, because that is just as important and crucial and beneficial as what we bring forth in words. The second step, though, if we want to keep going, is to begin to sense what is arising from within us, what's arising from our centers of spiritual knowing, and also maybe what's arising from the field, from our guides, from what's here in our midst. And I'll say a little bit more about forms of that in a minute. But then the third step would be to share that, to speak forth, to name these impressions. And this is actually somewhat of a biblical practice. They called it prophecy in the Bible, but we don't use that word here because it has all these negative connotations of predicting the future or speaking with the authority of the voice of God. But really what that word means is just to speak forth our spiritual knowing, to give voice to it. And in 1 Corinthians 14, the Apostle Paul says the reason they do that, the reason for that practice, is for strengthening, comforting, and encouraging one another. So everything we offer is with that spirit of strengthening, comforting, and encouraging. It's invitational, not directive. We're not telling people what to do. There's no shoulds or need tos. We're not giving advice. None of those things like that. So what it can look like, tapping into our centers, right? Our knowing, our spiritual knowing within, from the headspace, a lot of time that's a visionary knowing. So we might see images or pictures, usually in the mind's eye, not externally, right? We're not looking at the background and trying to, see something in the screen, although sometimes we have visual impressions. Most often it's an internal image. And sometimes, though, it can also be words or sounds or sometimes even smells that come forth in the head center. From the heart space, we might feel, as we're focusing on someone, particular sensations in the heart, maybe an extra warmth or a feeling of tenderness or compassion, or sometimes my heart wants to lean in towards someone. So those are some things that can arise in the heart space, and you're welcome to just name those, to say, as I focus on you, I'm really feeling this in my heart. From the womb space, that's often a center of our intuitive knowing. So it might arise, these deep knowings, these kind of things that we don't know why we know them, right? But we just do. It's intuition. And those might be images as well. It might be words. It might be one word. Sometimes people get that from the womb. Oh, just this one word's coming forth. And often that's from the intuitive womb space. Our feet center, while there can be a grounding there and an interconnection through the earth, in resonating prayer, it's often a pathway to our somatic interconnection. So feeling energy in our body, in the materialness of our being in relation to one another. So this is my primary form. Like when I'm focusing on someone, I'll just notice an energy in my body and I'll sit with that and see what comes forth from it. So you'll see me doing that a little bit in the practice. And yeah, we can hear from guides. Some people see guides. And also there can be a sense of the field participating. Often it's not just what's coming forth within. Something someone else shares might also raise up something in our knowing, and there's a co-creative effect with it. So everyone does have usually kind of a different mystical primary language, right? Your most natural mode of doing this. And encourage you, especially for these first sessions, to go with that primary form, and then over time you can integrate and learn other languages too. But it is a practice. It's something we grow in. The more that we do it, we learn it with time. So just like any practice, in the early stages it might feel a little uncomfortable, a little unfamiliar, but that's okay. Again, this is a space of freedom to experiment and to be in trust and safety with one another. So there, again, there's no authority in what we share, and everything that's offered is offered with that freedom, recognizing that we're all practicing this. So we might be on, we might not be, and the way that we tell that is through resonance, right? Does it resonate? Is there a resonating that happens when that's shared? Okay, then we can absorb it, we can take it in. We don't have to interpret it, we don't have to know what it means right away. Sometimes that takes more time, but we receive it. If there's dissonance, if it doesn't connect, okay, well, maybe I'll have to sit with that a little bit longer, or maybe I know, okay, we can just release that maybe wasn't coming from the place of spirit. So it all is happening in this shared loving space. So we're beholding one another in love, right? Again, we're not correcting, we're not fixing, we're seeing with that loving compassion and grace and care. And also, we're not comparing how we do it to anyone else, right? There's no ego games here. Everyone's going to do it a little differently. And we don't need to have any kind of performance anxiety, right? If you're feeling that, right, you can release that. You can stay in the space of silence, and there's no judgment in that, right? So we want to release any of that. Tony and Alan and I have done this a fair bit, so we're going to be a little more familiar and experienced with it, and that's okay, right? That's a different space of development. So one other note on when you're receiving, that can also be kind of a difficult practice for some people as well, to be in that space of being seen and showered upon with love and images. So I just, encourage you to, to be in that space with openness, with the freedom to absorb, right, what fits and release what doesn't, and let yourself receive a little love. We all need that in our lives. So some people like to take notes while they're being shared for, so they can help remember it. They can have kind of a dreamlike quality where they'll fade away afterwards. So it's nice to make some kind of record of it, either during it or after, and let yourself absorb it in that way, and then integrate it over time. After everyone is shared, or whoever's going to share, a bit of time, I'll invite the participant to give some feedback if they want. That can be really helpful for the people who are sharing. If you say, oh, that really resonated with me, that connects with something that, wow, how did you know that? Or that way that person who shared it knows, oh, that's what it feels like to be hearing from the spirit, and offering that. So that's helps affirm other people by giving that feedback. Or you can just give a word of thanks, just say thanks, and we'll go on to the next person. I just overall ask everyone to trust your experience, trust one another in their discernment, right? That whatever is offered, they'll be able to know if it resonates or not. And that's up to them to take that in and hold that in the space of discernment and wisdom. So that's the practice of resonating prayer. It's how we can learn to resonate within and among us as an evolving way to pray with and among one another from our fuller, deeper divine consciousness. So it works best when we release any pressure, any worry or constriction. we let go of all these things, these ideas and mental concepts we've just talked about, right? So we'll take a little break to relax and stretch and prepare for entering the space through our meditation. So we'll come back in a few minutes.